Welcome to the 1% Insight. Today I'm joined by Stephen Wilson Downey, co-founder and CEO of Spéire. Spéire specializes in high-quality websites, apps, software, AI, design, automation, and digital marketing. The ethos behind Spéire is an admiration of the Irish way of doing business, and they believe the limit is beyond the sky. This is a conversation you won't want to miss. Welcome to the 1% Insight, Stephen.
Thanks very much, Jack. It's nice to be here.
At the start of the podcast, we usually go back to how it all started. I think you had a really interesting career journey so far, Stephen. I'm starting off in culinary studies to now, how did you end up in digital transformation and digital marketing?
I suppose it goes back to a very important year of my life, which was transition year in school. So yeah, back when I was 16, there was two interests of mine, one of which was computers and technology. So I was spending a lot of time in the computer room in school and both building computers, fixing computers. And then there was the rise in the popularity of Gordon Ramsay and Kitchen Nightmares. So that was all over the media at that point as well. So I spent 1 week in a company called Care Systems Ireland, which is now a West Consulting, I think. And yeah, so the work I was given there on that transition year work experience was I was brought in and given a desk, and as part of the team looking after the Avon website. There was two web browsers that were dominant back then, Internet Explorer and Mozilla Firefox. So I was given all the lipsticks and I was given work to basically make them look the same on both browsers. So it was quite tedious, boring, a bit soul destroying. And then in contrast, I was in Vienna Woods Hotel. Very, very exciting, interesting working environment. Watching chefs work under high pressure at a quick pace. And I just found that was a bit more exciting at the time. So I got a summer job there, and in co-alignment with my secondary school education, I was training quite practically, learning the skills that would be involved in a professional kitchen. And yeah, that kind of sealed the deal for me at that age, going to culinary studies, a level 6 certificate in 2010. So yeah, I spent about 8 years chefing, but it didn't take me until the second year of my culinary studies certificate that I had more of a passion for business rather than food. So we were given the task of writing a business plan and doing market research, and doing all your costings to set up a restaurant. So I found that whole aspect very, very interesting, and it started to shift my focus slightly. But yeah, it was maybe another 2 years where I was progressing through to my degree, where we were given a module to make a ready-made meal or product. And at that point, I was working in a restaurant called Clancy's down in Youghal, and there was two chefs there that came from the Cliff House Hotel in Watford, and they were doing some really, really interesting techniques around sous vide. So I'm going to give you a go at this one, Jack. What do you think sous vide is?
Is it something to do with fish?
I suppose you can cook fish sous vide. It's a cookery process where you essentially put the food in plastic bags and remove the oxygen and seal them, and it allows you to cook food at lower temperature. But what I could not get over was the natural shelf life I could get from it. It's about 3 weeks in a refrigerated environment, and I was amazed by that. But also, because of the absence of oxygen, the flavors taste well. You have to cook the food to as high a temperature for it to be safe to eat. So there's probably a difference between 8 to 10 degrees between the two. So if you're not cooking sous vide, you're cooking more traditionally, you're looking to get a core temperature of 75 degrees. If you're cooking chicken, for example, the difference with sous vide is you can cook it much lower. It could be 65, 68 degrees. So really, really interesting. Yeah, I developed a bit of an obsession over it. And I thought that surely there's a ready-made meal to be made out of this. And that's when I started to engage with the entrepreneurial ecosystem in CIT, now MTU. And I entered the prize for innovation, and I won about, I think it was 2.5 grand. And the day that I got the money, I went on to Done Deal and I bought my own sous vide machine. Stephen Belton down in Garrybow Hotel gave me a little corner to go and start doing my prototyping. And then that very summer, I went into the student incubation program run by the Rubicon Center to work on my product. And this time, I think we were given around 4 or 5 grand to determine the feasibility of the project. That's when I took the plunge. I gave up chefing and went whole hog at this project, doing market research. I researched the Irish market and their preferences, ready meals, the UK market as well, so Wales, England, Scotland, the differences between the three. So I figured out what segment was most likely to purchase the product. And then the next phase came the costings. And I always love to ask this question. So getting the product to the shelf, how much capital do you think I needed to get that up and going?
20K, 5K, that way under.
Way under, way under. So I suppose what I was calculating, right? So you had your raw materials and the way a lot of food products would go. Not all, but many. You'd kind of start off in your local markets or your local setting, and you start to produce and scale up from there. But spent that summer driving around to different companies that do food manufacturing in the Irish market, and the one problem that I kept experiencing was that they weren't able to produce it because they had different processes in different buildings. So I needed one straight line production. Outside of that, I was looking at, right, I'm going to have to carry my own overheads and hire my own staff and what have you. And by the time I finished calculating all of that, it came to about 1.2 million that I would have to get to the point where I can sell one product from a supermarket shelf somewhere. You could spend a lifetime raising that amount of money and a lot of hard work. I decided to pack that in and there was an enterprise internship in MTU at the time, and I did a master's science in market practice. So that was always an interest of mine in terms of, the food branding and the advertising. I grew up with terrestrial TV before digital came along. Digital was a primary school, but we didn't get into our house until I was around 16, 17. So I saw a lot of ads, and I naturally developed an interest in that side of things when I was a kid. And still enjoy seeing some advertising media today and how it works and how it still manages to position brands in front of the consumer. So towards the end of my first year of my master's, that put 5 quid into the on-campus bank, set up a business account, and just got going, customer by customer. That's where I met Dave Lyons, other co-founder. He was studying the same master's program. Away we went and kept our day jobs and met our customers outside of work hours. As the company started generating more revenue and able to support us, we jumped in one by one.
The super story, and really interesting to kind of go from understanding like the business of food and then going to marketing and taking all those kind of insights with you and to start Spéire. How did you find the early stages of starting Spéire?
I suppose, in the first 2 years, everything was trumped by excitement. I mean, we were a lot younger then, so there wasn't too much pressure on us, so to speak. I suppose where it all starts to become a bit more real is when you've given up the day job and you're all in and you're growing and scaling. And I suppose growing and scaling is definitely the one to watch. So I think you have to have a very tight grip on what you're doing, measuring what you're doing, and not taking too much on as well. Because if you start to take on too much and spread yourself too thin, that's when you start falling down in terms of the delivery of your projects to your client satisfaction. So I think that balance needs to be tailored very, very carefully.
How did you come up with the name Spéire?
It took quite a long time, actually. Well, I suppose a long time in my head, probably 2 or 3 months, trying to think of the name. Naming it was actually the hardest part. And I wanted to go with something Oscuelga to quickly communicate to the Irish market that we're local and we value the Irish way of doing business. Like, it's definitely my belief that, the way we network, the way we do business with each other is all relationship based. So I think something that quickly communicates the locality so that, another business in the Irish market can quickly see the wood from the trees in terms of if they're wanting to collaborate with someone a little bit closer to home. So there's that aspect, but really liked the whole idea of era spare, the sky being derived from bonna spera, the phrase for horizon. And there's a lot of things you could do there visually and helping the customer visualize that, the limit is beyond the sky in terms of what you could do if you innovate and you work hard enough.
That's super. No, it's a really clever name and something you wouldn't see too often, especially in marketing agency. Now, a lot of our listeners would be in marketing, whether that be in B2B marketing or also in the agency space as well. The whole ethos of the podcast is the 1% insights. So listening to founders, marketing executives, just interesting people in general, share their 1% insight lessons. So to those who might be starting or running a digital agency, marketing agency for a while, what 1% insights from your experience of running Spéire would you give to them?
Definitely relationships. So the marketing program that I did, which unfortunately isn't there anymore, but I studied relationship marketing as part of that. And it taught me quite a lot that, if you're looking at digital or any other channels as a form of return on investment, underlying element of it all is your relationship with your customers, but also your suppliers and even your competitors. And that is one thing that's crucially important to us, is that we make friends with everyone that we come across, and really invest our time and efforts into fostering a really, really collaborative connection. Because when things go wrong, and it's inevitable if you are starting your own business, that projects are going to not go to plan, the relationship there is key to get yourself back on track and succeed out the other side. Trust is a huge part of it as well. The ability to put your hands up and say, look, brought this in the wrong direction, but here's what we're going to do to fix it. And then once you deliver on the other side, personally believe that the customer respects that a lot more. And in fact, out the other side, and they become a lot more loyal to you and your business, because they know all of what you're about. Even with suppliers as well and competitors, there's plenty of business out there as well. For example, if there's something that your team doesn't really have all the skills required for a certain project, where there's a certain discipline, for example, something highly technical or coding language or a certain stack, having deep knowledge there, you're better off, passing that to someone else who already has it. The customer or the inquiry, they really value that, and they don't forget it. But also, you find that these things come around as well. Other things come your way too. So I suppose that's my 1%. Just put the person at the center of it all. And even when it comes to marketing campaigns as well, if you're putting the end customer at the center of the channel being used, the materials that you're going to use, and knowing as much about that end customer and their preferences is hugely important as well, because it increases the risk of a poor return on marketing investment if you don't know enough about the target market, and you might be using a channel that's not relevant to them.
Is focusing on the customer, and you're very focused on conversion and return on marketing investment for those customers, those businesses who want to get the most out of their marketing investment. How do they achieve this? Obviously, can't, broadly speaking, every business is different, but how could they achieve this an increase of return on marketing investment, and what metric should they be looking at?
Keeping it very, very simple. So if you're looking at the beginning of a campaign, if you can't measure the output, there's no point in doing it. Otherwise, you're entering into the risk of throwing money at clicks or buying eyeballs. So I think having that strategy nailed down in terms of, okay, what is the goal of this campaign? And it's 9 times out of 10, it's purchases, it's conversions into leads and inquiries. So that's where you kind of start. How do you measure that? So, for example, if it's a website, you're not going to put a conversion tag on a homepage. You're going to put it on a thank you page after somebody's made a submission, or a thank you page after somebody's purchased product. So that's probably where you start, and that conversion tag would ping back then to the advertised channel on whether or not the click that was sent through is bought from you. So that's one element of it. But also, every customer that is engaging with you for a marketing campaign, they're a business. So you have to look at the money that they're going to be spending, and you have to calculate the amount of what a successful conversion looks like. So if you're spending 3-4 grand in ad spend a month plus labor and you're a furniture shop, for instance, so 10 grand worth of sales in, and then you're not factoring in the assembly costs and distribution costs, then you're entering into the territory of a loss making campaign. Knowing what costs are involved on both sides, your side and the customer side, and measuring the return from there, that's when you're going to be looking at the growth area. So having a clear understanding of that, and but also the channel as well. Having an insane amount of detail about the end customer, what that looks like, who they are, where they typically make their purchases, how they make their purchases, and where they learn about their new solutions. Answering all of those questions. Because if you're just going to run a Google campaign and a Meta campaign, not many of those questions answered, then there is an element of flying blind. You have to begin with a sense of measurement. You need to be able to measure what success looks like, and that keeps you on the right track. Because if you are generating a return on marketing investment, it also provides more funding to reinvest into other aspects of the campaigns that you want to begin with to sell other products or expand into other geographic territories. So it's a really, really important metric to focus on. Otherwise, you're just running something in the background in the hope that it's going to continue to drive more business.
What are you kind of seeing perform well right now in a digital space? And this can be from advertising, paid advertising, be from websites, the different areas that you specialize in. What are you seeing performing well now as a channel or a campaign?
Paid advertising, once it's set up correctly, is always going to perform. But I think the trend that we're going to see now in the next few years is your organic SEO is going to become very, very important. Again, it always was there. It never went away, but there was a period there in search engines where your paid rankings were really outperforming the organic rankings. Well, I suppose with AI and your natural language processing engines such as OpenAI or your ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity, all these products, they are crawling and indexing websites, and it's all question and answer content. So you're going to see a difference in how people engage with their organic search engine strategies, where the content is going to be focused on answering a question or solving a problem. But you're going to see advertising, it's always going to be there, and it's always going to keep up with these advancements. So, I mean, Perplexity has started to do it where you're going to have rankings, for lack of a better term, to be an answer to a certain prompt. So, for example, the medical industry over in the US, you have, if you're a doctor surgery and you're wanting to be the top answer for somebody inquiring about an ailment, they can click through and book on your website. So I think that's where we're going to see a lot of movement over the next couple of years. And it is good to see search and optimization stay relevant, but also it keeps websites relevant as well. Consumers are always going to have somewhere to go to buy something, but also you're going to be creating information for these engines to keep up to date and fresh. I think the use of AI to create is going to contribute to a lot of noise. I mean, Google is really doubling down on the quality and relevancy of search results. And I think a human is best equipped to answer a question that another human is asking because they're able to pick up the context.
AI point, I feel like it's just been obviously a huge advancement in the last 2 years. It became kind of mainstream with OpenAI, but now obviously the tools are, endless essentially of what people can use. But sometimes businesses necessarily don't have the time to implement these or adapt these into their either marketing or even overall business strategy. For the businesses listening today, hearing about AI, how can they use it more of a kind of operational sense to maybe reduce costs or streamline certain areas? What would be your take on that, Stephen, in terms of how businesses can use AI?
Definitely look at your processes and start with the administration side of your business to begin with. So you've got really good tools like Zapier or Microsoft Power Automate is really competitively priced as well. Automating the stuff that is capable of being automated, that's where you need to start. Anything that requires a bit of thought and analysis, AI isn't 100% there yet. So I suppose the rule of thumb is never use it to create or do. It's a tool, I think is the message I'm trying to put out there, is just remember that it's a tool that can assist you with making things a bit more efficient. So like bringing information from one point and sending it to another That's a really, really good use case for AI at the moment, or helping analyze a huge amount of data for trends and insights. If you've got a large spreadsheet and you know what you need to look for, as long as the information isn't sensitive, you can use something like ChatGPT to help you see the wood for the trees when it comes to trends, asking you the right questions and what have you. But it is important as well to look at the settings that you have for these kind of things. Like in ChatGPT, for instance, you have to disable training elements. So any document that you're uploading, make sure that it doesn't get retained to train the entire model. So you have to be really careful about things like that and the privacy of the data. So, if you have a bit of a responsibility for making sure that the data isn't getting shared to third parties, you have to be really, really careful.
It's going to be interesting for businesses to navigate now, especially over the next couple of years, as it keeps kind of building and learning from itself and improving. Obviously getting more sophisticated then in terms of like the next layers of AI that we go into. So that would be interesting for both the
Yeah.
businesses and also people actually implementing it for maybe businesses, either in-house or as a kind of an agency as well, and how they kind of work that new solution into their workflows. Thanks very much for sharing your 1% insights with us today, Stephen. If you had one final piece of advice to a business looking to improve their return on marketing investment, what would it be?
It would be if you're starting a new campaign, you do need to experiment a little bit at the beginning to figure out where the sweet spot is, but make sure that the way of measuring the difference between a conversion versus a click is correctly set up. Otherwise, you're on a path to having a very inefficient campaign. Begin with the conversion in mind. What does that look like? How it's going to be measured, and then build everything else around that.
Thanks, Stephen. And where can our listeners find you?
So yeah, you can log on to www.spéire.ie, or follow me on LinkedIn as well. When I do get some time, I like to drop some bits of content that I do come across.
Thanks very much, Stephen.